what's going to happen? What does the outlook of things look like for my life, right? And so, of course, this is one of those things where it's like you want it so bad until you get it. And once I got it, I was kind of like, no. Like, it's not something that, like, everyone knows about and, you know, everyone is going to, like, feel bad and, you know, all this other stuff. No, it's in your head.
Have you tried yoga? Maybe you should see a psychiatrist. Are you stressed? Change your diet. Acupuncture. Try stretching. Sleep? You've been doing so well. Stop stressing. Anxiety. Functional? Functionality.
Welcome to the Functionality Podcast. I'm your host, Tausha. How are y'all functioning? If you're not functioning okay, that's totally fine because we are here to talk about your functionality. So what is the T on functional neurological disorder, aka FND? I've asked a few people, I've polled a few people on my Facebook and other parts of my social media, and what the hell is FND? What are you trying to tell us about? Well, it is functional neurological disorder. And let's just do a quick disclaimer. What qualifies you to talk about FND? What qualifies me to talk about it is that I live with it. And I think that is all the qualification that I absolutely need to be able to educate people about it and what it really is like to live with it and experience it versus just a doctor who tells you about it based off of what they see a patient come in and present with. For someone who actually lives with it to hear how their day-to-day life is going, I think that makes me more than qualified. So look, if you Google FND, your top 3 websites are going to be rarediseases.org. Then you're probably going to see neurosymptoms.org and fndhope.org. And then there's probably going to be a National Institute of Health and their like fact sheet. Neurosymptoms.org is actually the first website that I was given from my neurologist when I was diagnosed. And what I noticed about it, functional neurological disorder, it actually can also be called, there's several names for it, several, let's say, synonyms for this disorder. 7 plus names for this same disorder. I can't even, because tell me a disease or a disorder that has this many synonyms. I can't think of any. I tried to think of some, like, oh, well, no, there's subtypes of other disorders, you know, like when it comes to lupus, like there's more than one type of lupus, but it's the same disorder, yet it has so many different names, and its name has been changed over the years. So we've got functional neurological disorder, functional neurological symptom disorder, functional movement disorder, conversion disorder, which is AKA hysteria. So that's how, you know, the name has changed over the years, and I'll go into everything that it is if people don't know. But psychogenic seizures, psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, movement disorder, dissociative seizures, motor disorder, non-epileptic seizures, aka FND. Okay? For all intents purposes, throughout the show, I'm going to be calling it FND. Let's see. What is it, though? What is functional neurological disorder? So it is first of all, it's a real brain-based problem. It is a medical condition where there's a problem with the functioning of the nervous system and how the brain and body send and or receive signals. So it's not a structural disease, meaning that it can be pinpointed and saying, oh, hey, it's because you have a mass on your brain, or, oh, it's because your nerves aren't sending any signals anymore, or anything that's actual structural that you can like see and feel in the body. You can't. So something like multiple sclerosis, where it's very evident, it comes up in your test and you can see it, that's something that is easy to pinpoint. It's easy to say exactly what it is. There's really no gray area in it. But the problem with the functioning is the issue, yet it's called functional neurological disorder. It's pretty laughable because this is literally the least functional I've been in my entire life, but I have to tell people like, oh yeah, I have a functional disorder, which, I mean, if you really dive into it, it really is, they named it correctly, but just hearing it, if you're not really like well-versed in medicine and like medical terminology, you'd be like, oh, so you're functional? And it's like, kind of, but not so much. Oh, so it's neurological? I'm going to go into that later. So, okay, so we know that it's, functional. We know that it's a problem with how, like, the brain sends and receives signals and the nervous system, like, responds to that. But what are the symptoms? There's, like, so many symptoms to this that it can be mistaken for or thought of as like other neurological conditions. So there's a lot of ruling out in order to receive a diagnosis for this, because it could be mistaken for multiple sclerosis or fibromyalgia, sometimes Parkinson's, sometimes epilepsy. And then what happens is you have different kinds of symptoms, but they don't show up on tests. What are the symptoms? My symptoms are as follows. So my symptoms really, it first started off as tremors. The tremors was one of my main symptoms, and I don't call it seizures because, well, when I went to the neurologist originally, who wasn't the movement disorder specialist, she literally looked at me and was like, those are no seizures I've ever seen. And so I looked at her like, yeah, what the hell is it then? So it's interesting because that's like how it began with me. It's just like little twitches, and they just happen at night, kind of as I was going to sleep. And which, now that I think about it, going to sleep is when I have kind of like my biggest chances of going into an episode. So it just started off as tremors at night, and it was kind of like, I don't know, I was in the middle of dealing with being diagnosed and having surgery for my endometriosis, which I think that was my trigger for my FND. Let's just throw that out there. But I was in pain for over a year dealing with endometriosis, and then I finally got the surgery. And so I, was supposed to be good. And then right after that, I just really started like having the tremors increase. So it was like right after I had my surgery, which maybe it was a surgery, but the tremors increased. And then it got to a point where like I was like, they're just happening at night. So I was ignoring them. And then it increased to the point where I was having them during the day. And so even having them during the day, but like being able to like come out of it, like that was weird. Don't know what's happening. I was still kind of okay with it. But then when it started, like I had my first one when I was driving, and I was terrified. And so that's when I started really taking things seriously. And I was kind of going downhill at that point. So I really needed to seek some help. So it started with my tremors, and then developed into severe chronic fatigue, to the point that like I would just cry because I was so tired all the time. It didn't matter what I did. It just felt like I was like steamrolled on a daily basis. Like waking up was like awful. And at the time I was at home, we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? And so my daughter is at home. I have a daughter, by the way. I digress for just like 2 seconds. I just want to introduce her. Her name's Jalea, but I'll just call her Mommy Junior from here on out. And just want to go ahead and put that out on episode 1. Mommy Junior is my daughter because she thinks that she's my mom overall. But so Mommy Junior was virtual school, and I'm barely doing anything, just kind of being the guardian, the person that's at home above over 18 to be with her. However, like the amount of naps that I had to take, the fact that like I bought a 6-foot beanbag, which is my saving grace, and I just lived on that thing. I kid you guys not, I pretty much lived on it. So the fatigue, so tremors, fatigue, and then the pain, the chronic pain of feeling as if I am like so elderly, and I'm not. I am and was, well, I don't even know if I can still say am, but I'm going to speak it. I was a very, very active person. Like my Instagram used to be all me going to the gym completely. I mean, I have a whole new Instagram at this point, but that's all I used to post. I used to go to the gym all the time, and I have been athletic my entire life. So the fact that my body hurts as bad as it does when I like stand in the kitchen and do dishes is pathetic to me. It truthfully is, like, it kills me. So my hip pain and back pain and shoulder pain and just so much pain. And it's like, why are you in so much pain from doing nothing? I'm like tired of being tired of hurting from doing nothing. So those are like my main symptoms. And then on the bad days, on my really bad episodes, I lose my walking. I have a very difficult time walking. And, I do the typical. If you've never seen it, I would suggest that you look it up, because it's crazy that all of the people and all of the videos that I have seen, we all have that same little wobbly walk. And there's this person on Instagram, and her handle is the wobbly mom, and I think that's so funny because that's what I became. Is I just literally became like a wobbly person. So it looks like it looks like, yo, stop playing around and wobbling your legs, but it's legit. And then on the really bad days, like my legs, I lose my legs, and so it's like I know that they're there, but I lose the ability to really have that sensation. I see them, but there's no sensation that they're there. So that's that temporary paralysis. So those are just some of my symptoms, and obviously I don't have all the symptoms. This disorder has a very, very wide range of symptoms, and so it's just there's so much, so much. But what happens is this disorder is stuck between neurological and psychiatry or psychological. So it's right in between. It is like, to me, it's like the gray area disease, which is like perfect for me because I've always been like the difficult case, no matter what kind of like sickness I was dealing with or whatever. So it's a gray area kind of disease. And also what it came from is like, if you've ever heard of hysteria in history, when the women, when their men, their husbands would go off to war, and they would have to deal with all the, they would have to work, and they would have to deal with all the things at home, and just deal with, losing their husbands. A lot of them, lost their lives and everything. They were hysterical. And so they started to exhibit symptoms. So, okay, it started as hysteria. And then, okay, Sigmund Freud came along and then dubbed it conversion disorder, because it's like, oh, what's happening is you are converting some type of childhood trauma or some type of trauma that you've experienced, and you're converting it into physical symptoms. But then as other people came about and they tried to diagnose them with conversion disorder, they're like, but bro, I don't have any trauma. I don't have anything. I really can't pinpoint any trauma that would have made these types of symptoms come about. And that's where like the stigma of this comes about, is because people don't want to say that, oh, I'm having these problems because it's all in my head. And that is like the big overarching like gray cloud about FND, which is why it is probably why a lot of people haven't heard of it, because if you're diagnosed with it, you're kind of like, I don't know how to like say that I deal with this, or I don't know how to accept the fact that I deal with it, and there's nothing that you can see on a test. It doesn't show up on these tests. So if an MRI, my MRIs come back perfect. My blood work, it's perfect. I had an EEG, it's perfect. Meanwhile, the whole time I'm having the EEG, I'm having these tremors. But I'm like, so y'all don't see this. But since it doesn't come up and it's not an issue with the actual waves in the brain, and you can't see it on a test, the clinicians and practitioners are like, it's not quite neurological, hun. I literally asked my neurologist, the one who diagnosed me, I was like, is this a neurological disorder? And she kind of hesitated, because I kind of was like, give me the real, I don't need any BS. I don't need you to beat around the bush with me. What is it? Because I have some background history, and I know a lot about, the medical field. I was a certified EMT, medical assistant, all that other stuff. But she told me no, it's technically not a neurological disorder. And I haven't seen her since. However, it's not a neurological disorder. And so all she does every single time I speak to her is say, have you seen mental health? Have you followed up with behavioral health? Have you seen mental health? And I'm like, see, she's trying to push me in the direction of this conversion disorder. However, knowing what I know about myself, and knowing what I know about psychology and mental health, and no, I'm not too good for it. I don't think, I don't have an issue with people who go to it. Honestly, I know about the benefits of it. I have a degree in psychology. I was an RBT, registered behavioral technician, for 6+ years. I have the history in it, so I know about how good the field of psychology is and how necessary it is. However, the way that my symptoms arose, and for like where I am in my life at this time, I was like, that's not going to help me. For me to have to make these appointments and force myself to go to something that I don't believe I can do, I believe that I can help myself. And research just kind of showed me that what happens is the exact cause of FND is it's unknown. And so now that people are out of the fact of thinking that it is completely a psychological or 100% psychological disorder, now, you know, it's kind of like back to the drawing board. People want to know, like, what can you see? We have, you know, more advanced technology and testing. We still don't know the exact cause. It happens to many different types of people and many different people who have different biological and social factors. So nothing adds up. So it's like, all right, here we go. Wide variety of symptoms, whole bunch of names, wide variety of names, wide variety of causes. So to me, that's why I call this like the junk drawer of all disorders, because it's just like, hey, let's throw a bunch of shit together and call it a disorder, which fine. That's fine with me. I am okay at this point in life. It's been, I want to say it's been about 1.5 years since I got my diagnosis. And when I first was going, I wanted a diagnosis. I did not know what was happening to my body. I did not know if I was going to be okay. I was concerned. Am I going to be able to, you know, live life with my partner? Oh, didn't mention him yet. My partner's name, the love of my life, his name is Keith, but I'm going to call him Mr. Mahogany, and that's my nickname for him. Y'all can call him Keith, but Mr. Mahogany. So am I going to be able to spend the rest of my life with Mr. Mahogany? Am I going to be able to, like, travel and do the things that we plan to do? Am I going to be able to be in my child's life? I mean, she's only 8, and so, like, what do I have to prepare myself for was what I was trying to find out. Is this multiple sclerosis? Is this something that I'm going to be able to heal from? Do I need some sort of surgery? Do I need some sort of medicine? Do I have a mass in my brain, like, freaking out? And then to get the diagnosis of functional neurological disorder or conversion disorder, because that's really what's in my charts. But I think that's just due to my insurance, and my insurance is from the military, because I used to be in the Army, and I just think that their insurance codes are a little bit outdated. So I think that's why we have conversion disorder on my chart, but I'm okay with it, because here is how I kind of reasoned it for myself. I wanted a diagnosis because I wanted to know, like, what's going to happen? What does the outlook of things look like for my life, right? And so, of course, this is one of those things where it's like you want it so bad until you get it. And once I got it, I was kind of like, no. Like, it's not something that, like, everyone knows about, and, you know, everyone is gonna, like, feel bad, and, you know, all this other stuff. No, it's in your head. But, like, no, it's not really all in your head, even though your brain is in your head. It's like a real brain-based problem. So coming to terms with that was a little bit of a struggle, but I had to reason it and deduce it down like this. Okay. 1, I haven't died yet, so it must not be life-threatening. And 2, I don't get worse by the day. So what am I going to do so that I can continue to live my life to have the highest quality of life that is possible? So that's like where I stood. And I read in a book one day that says to be able to call a demon by its name is halfway of getting rid of him. So, all right, now I'm able to call it by its name. It's FND. All right, so then I needed to do more research on it. And what I found out is that it's like the most common disorder that you've never even heard of, the most common condition you've never heard of. And in the research, they are comparing it, researchers and, you know, statistics are comparing it to, oh, it's just as prevalent as, like, Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis. And I'm like, I call bullshit, because I'd never heard of it, and I really like the medical field. Like, I know a lot of things about it. I like to learn about it. So how come I'd never heard of it? But then when putting pieces together, and I'm like, it's the same thing as conversion disorder. And then I'm like, wait, I'm offended, because I know what conversion disorder is. But acceptance is the beginning of healing. And so that's really where I started my journey. That's really where I started my functional neurological healing journey, because I just accepted it. I was like, all right, so it's suggesting all these things. It's suggesting all these ways to fix it or to try to, you know, help those symptoms that I experienced. And none of these things are going to hurt me. So some of the things that it's going to suggest as far as treatment is, you know, yoga, meditation, changing your diet, exercising more, all the things that really you're supposed to do anyway to have a healthy lifestyle. So I was like, you know what? this might not be it, but this might be it. And if I keep fighting it and trying to find a different doctor and trying to seek, a third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth opinion, am I still going to be just as miserable as I am right now? And so I decided, what if I do try the interventions that are mentioned, the interventions that are suggested? I bet you it wouldn't do me any harm. If anything, it could do me some good, even if it's not the exact things that need to happen, even if there are still questions that I need answered. If I do these things, I bet you that it could help. So I did. I started doing some of those things, and I got to the point where I'm like, listen, if I'm gonna have to live with this disease, I want to live with it on my terms. So I'm not gonna live with it. It lives with me. It's going to have to go with the things that I want to do. It's going to have to be in the background. It's not going to be the foreground and just like the actual definition of who I am. It's not going to define me. I'm still going to be me. I am still going to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish in life. I am still going to watch my child grow up. I am still going to have a wonderful relationship with Mr. Mahogany. And I am still going to make an impact, because that's like what I'm here to do, is to make an impact in the world. And even though I look at this as such a sinister disease, because I'm okay enough to still look normal and do normal things. I can do the things and I look okay, right? However, sometimes I'm sick enough to feel miserable. And it's like more often than not, I feel miserable and have to mask it. So it's not a completely invisible illness, because people can see tremors, people can see seizures, people can see the fact that, you are in pain, that you're actually in pain. People could see if you're, throwing up, but they can't see nausea. People can see the fact that your face looks like you're in pain, but they can't see the pain. But it is invisible enough to hide from all tests, to hide from all medical tests that will actually show something. So the only way to really diagnose it is for someone to show positive signs on what's called like a Hoover's test. And that's where basically like you can be exhibiting your symptoms and then like they distract you from it, and then the symptoms decrease. And so that is a positive sign, is the fact that your symptoms decrease when you're distracted. So literally they will have you count backwards from 70 by threes or something like that, but it actually kind of works. And so what did I have to do one time? I was in a doctor's appointment. I was in the office and I started exhibiting symptoms, like I'm shaking, I'm doing my little tremors or whatever. And she was like, I need you to say the months of the year backwards. And I was like, what? And she was like, just say the months of the year backwards. So I'm over here like, don't you see what's happening to me? Like, I'm shaking. And so I started saying the months of the year backwards, and I guess taking your focus away from what is happening and making your brain focus on and produce something else, some other area of thought, some other train of thought, then it actually kind of decreases the symptoms. And I think that's super crazy, but we're still learning about the brain and everything that comes with it. So, that is what the heck functional neurological disorder is. And I know I said a whole lot, but this is episode 1, and it really is just breaking down exactly kind of what this podcast is going to be about. And then each week from here on out, I'm going to just really dissect little pieces of different, symptoms and how we function. Or how I function. And then I can't wait to get some feedback and for people to send me messages about what I might need to talk about or what they're interested in, or maybe questions that they have. I really want nothing more than to just be a resource, because I don't want to say so many. There's quite a few pages that talk about FND, but it's just like an overview. That's what I keep seeing, is this same overview of like, what are the symptoms? What is it called? What causes it? And what can you do as far as therapies? And that's not enough. Like, that's literally just not enough. I think if I had someone to listen to and to turn to kind of give me the inside view of what it's like to live with the disorder, instead of just like what the doctors think that people live like, or just writing down like, the prevalence of this. That's not helpful when I'm on the floor. That's not helpful when I'm only 30 years old and I'm falling on the way to the bathroom. That's not helpful when I'm driving and then all of a sudden I'm dissociating and I feel like I'm in a unsafe situation. So that's what I'm here for, is to just give you guys the tea on what it's like to live with this disorder and push through it and to remain positive through it. My mantra is to be intentional, be faithful, and be humble. And that helps me every single day. So hope this has blessed you guys, and I cannot wait to come back for episode 2. Episode 2 is going to be a good one. So as I said before, be intentional, be faithful, and be humble.